one of the big organizations that has supported the Zionist movement has been the Anti-Defamation League. And the Anti-Defamation League is not like a civil rights organization as we traditionally know it. People will say that it is. People will say, oh, you got the NAACP, you got the Urban League, you got the National Action Network, you got Rainbow Push, you got whatever, you got B'nai B'rith, and then you got the Anti-Defamation League. No, the Anti-Defamation League is not a traditional civil rights organization. The Anti-Defamation League has a long history of being a menace. Now, sometimes the Anti-Defamation League gets it right. They do call out anti-Semitism. They do call out harm and hate against Jewish people. They do rightly challenge harm and hate against Jewish people. The problem is they also decide to weaponize the language and the discourse of anti-Semitism against people who simply disagree with Israel. The ADL is an advocacy organization masquerading as a civil rights organization, whereas the NAACP, they hear about racism, they go out, they address it. The Anti-Defamation League smears people. They lie on people. They put false charges of anti-Semitism on people. Now, that's not to say that everybody they accuse of anti-Semitism is innocent. No, they get anti-Semites too. The problem is they cast such a wide net that they not only get the anti-Semites, but they also get people who have principled differences and principled political positions that simply challenge Israel. So the ADL has a long history of smearing and lying and misrepresenting and challenging the wrong people at the same time that they also do some good work. So when you know all of that, it makes the ADL not so trustworthy as a source, right? If I said the Southern Poverty Law Center deemed this group a hate group, you'd say, okay, I trust Southern Poverty Law Center. If I said CARE or the NAACP made a determination from their investigation and research, you'd probably believe it. And for a long time, the ADL has flown under the radar, despite the fact that it is often not reliable. Well, Wikipedia, Wikipedia is on to them. That's right. Wikipedia, the editors at Wikipedia, I'm not talking about random Joe Schmo, but the editors at Wikipedia have determined damn near unanimously, that the Anti-Defamation League is, quote, unreliable on two issues, on Israel-Palestine, and number two, on anti-Semitism. To be clear, the editors of Wikipedia, now if you don't know Wikipedia, you do. It's sort of online crowdsourced information network. The editors of Wikipedia voted to declare the ADL, quote, generally unreliable on Israel and Palestine. They also said that it was generally unreliable on anti-Semitism. And they not only made that determination, but they added the ADL to a list of banned sources. That means if you say something's anti-Semitic, you can't say, well, it's anti-Semitic because the ADL said so. Nah, B. Not anymore. Not nowadays. The report said that the overwhelming majority, that's a quote, the quote, overwhelming majority of Wikipedia editors voted to deem the organization unreliable. The Middle East Eye reached out to Wikipedia for comment on the report. And when I read the Middle East Eye, which I like to read, they didn't want to respond. Now, they responded to the Jewish Telegraph Agency, but they didn't respond to the Middle East Eye. So I looked for it. I was waiting to hear what they would say back. They didn't say much. But the Wikipedia editor said this: ADL no longer appears to adhere to a serious, mainstream, and intellectually cogent definition of anti-Semitism, but has instead given into the shameless politicization of the very subject that it was originally esteemed for being reliable on. In other words, that's perfectly put. The ADL was supposed to be, the ADL was sort of a watchdog organization to fight anti-Semitism. And now they call everything anti-Semitic. That's basically what the editor is saying. And so we can't trust that anymore. When you say something's anti-Semitic, that doesn't mean anything. Now, it's interesting. They're not the only place that's on the no-fly list. National Enquirer is on there. Newsmax is on there. Ugh. TMZ is on there, surprisingly. And then InfoWars, of course, as long as it exists, and ain't gonna exist long with no money, is on there too. So the ADL is now at a lower tier than it was in the public opinion and in the professional ranks even a week ago. This is important stuff. The Anti-Defamation League no longer being seen as a reliable source by Wikipedia, that's an index of a bigger issue, which is that the ADL is no longer being uncritically trusted. The people are challenging the Anti-Defamation League. They're also challenging the Anti-Defamation League's definition of anti-Semitism, which is reliant upon the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance and their definition. And the public's not buying it anymore. The public isn't buying it anymore. The public cares about anti-Semitism. The public cares about, we care about our Jewish brothers and sisters, but we will not allow ourselves, and by us, again, I'm talking about just the public, the general public, we will not be bullied into taking an unprincipled position out of fear. Not out of fear. The great revolutionaries are driven by love. The great revolutionaries are driven by inspiration and care and compassion and mercy. Time is changing. The political climate is changing. People shouldn't be making decisions because they're motivated by fear of being canceled, fear of being silenced, fear of being sullied, fear of being smeared, but they should be driven by proactive feelings of love and commitment to this struggle. And those two things clash sometimes when we talk about this issue. Because on the one hand, there are some of us who actually care about anti-Semitism. And we care about Palestinian life and freedom and liberation. But we don't even have time to think through those issues and adjudicate competing issues and competing claims about this stuff. Why? Because they've been so afraid of being smeared by the ADL. They're so afraid of being lied upon by the ADL. So afraid of being dragged by the ADL. You don't want to run for office. I mean, look at Jamal Bowman right now. Jamal Bowman is in the fight for his political life. He's an incumbent incoming member of Congress, a representative out of New York, who's now being primaried by AIPAC and by the ADL and by these other people who have framed him as somebody who's an enemy to Jewish people simply because he supports Palestine. But because the ADL relies upon the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's definition of anti-Semitism, which includes framing Israel as a racist enterprise, there's no way to be critical of Israel and not be deemed anti-Semitic in the eyes of the ADL. And because they wield enough political sway, because they present themselves as an advocacy organization, as a civil rights organization. I mean, imagine the NAACP coming after somebody, right? You know, because they frame themselves that way and present themselves that way are embraced that way, it puts people in tough positions, man. It puts people in a tough spot. But the good news is people aren't buying it anymore. The fact that the editors of Wikipedia are pushing back, and the fact that people aren't just wholesale embracing the IHRA definition, although Congress is, and that's ridiculous, it says that we're making progress. So as frustrating as it is that the ADL moves the way it does, the fact that Wikipedia is on top of it, the fact that we now know, that's a major, major, major victory.